Greetings, everybody. Welcome to this healing live talk or live healing talk or something along these lines. My name is Pierre Etienne, and I will be a host today with my colleague Amari Dior, and we will be talking about self-care burnout, which is a little bit of a paradox when you think about it, and yet, how many of us have been in there? So, self-care burnout, what does that mean? What's self-care? What's burnout? How come we can burn out when we try to take care of ourselves so much, too much? We're going to be discussing it with Amari in a second. Let me pin that comment here. Here you go. Bringing Amari in here today. Connecting, and here we are.
Good morning, or good evening over there.
Hello. Yeah. Can we hear each other? Yes, we
Yes,
can
I can
hear
hear
each
you now.
other. Hello. How are you today?
I'm good. Good start to the morning. How about you?
Doing well. Feeling, talking about self-care. I look a little hot because one, I just finished working out. Two, it's 40 degrees Celsius in Cairo right now, which is about 19 something. That's a lot of
Wow.
Fahrenheit. It's hot. It's hot right now. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
but other than this, doing well.
That's
So,
nice.
shall we take a couple of breaths before we dive
Let's
in?
do it.
Let's do it. Invitation, whether you're joining us live or you're watching that replay, with your eyes open or with your eyes closed, just taking a couple of breaths, which can be in itself a beautiful self-care practice. All right.
I love
So,
when we start that way.
we always start this way. So, self-care burnout. Let's start maybe with defining a little bit what we're talking about. I feel like it's kind of obvious and at the same time not that much. I mean, based on the number of people, including myself, who've been, having self-care burnout.
Right.
I guess it's not that obvious. So here, today I'd like for us to discuss obviously what is self-care, what's proper self-care, because obviously self-care burnout, as far as I see it, is not necessarily proper self-care. Maybe
Right.
also what self-care is not. I think we're being sold a version of self-care here by society that's not necessarily in line with at least what I'm inspiring to. But right, and whatever comes up. So we'll take about 20 minutes to 15 to 20 minutes to discuss this. Does that sound good? Anything else that
You
we want
got
to
it.
cover?
You got it.
Right. So self-care, care for oneself. I'm doing something that's nurturing, right? That's gentle, that helps me resource, regenerate, reset. Like how, right? Ideally at a pace that feels right. That's not so much. That's not too much. Right?
Yeah, yeah. And the key to what you're saying is that it feels right to my body, that it's gentle, that it's not too much, not too little. And I think that sweet spot is really, really important. And I've caught myself plenty of times, just like you mentioned before, in regards to yourself, of doing it too much, trying too hard. That word trying is really, really, I think it tips the ball over when it comes to self-care burnout. So I'm really excited to speak about this.
Yeah. And I think the burnout here is, when the definition of burnout, I was like, what's the definition of burnout? Is the exhaustion of physical and emotional strength as a result of prolonged stress, and frustration.
Mm.
And that's interesting because really when you think about self-care burnout, that's kind of a paradox, right? Because self-care
Right.
should be gentle ideally, right? Should be good on my body, should be nurturing. Um, and yet I'm looking at society and I'm looking at, ways to care for myself and ourselves, and I'm like, there's so much pressure to do self-care. I don't know if that's probably very much like as far as I can see, also a Western thing to do, which is
Mm.
self-care has become like more of it's a chore.
Yeah.
For me, as far as I see it, the way I see it in
Mm.
society, at times for myself, a lot of time for the people I work with, um, who are patients of, they may be dealing with a variety of health challenges. And so, they've been sold on self-care. They're convinced about self-care. They know they need to do something.
Mm.
And yet it's interesting because a lot of the people I'm working with have, and I'm including myself in that, I've had health challenges in the past because I was doing too much, right?
Mm.
And then when I was sold on the idea of like, okay, don't forget, as part of all the things that you're doing, to also take care of yourself, then that became one item on my to-do list, right? That
Right.
became a chore. That became one more thing to do, and
Yeah.
and that's crazy because at times I feel like I was like, okay, let's just do it, like mechanically, like really, devoid of all spirit, of all, like there was no love at times in my self-care.
Mm.
And I think that's really one of the things that I was asking myself as I was reflecting on that self-care burnout. I was like, what is my self-care, or what was my self-care grounded into, rooted into, right, when it was a chore? Like, that wasn't
Mm.
love. It was like, I have to do it. This
Mm.
is this is something that if I don't do it, then I'm gonna feel guilty. Then I'm gonna feel worse. Then I'm gonna have more pain, etc., etc., etc. And so there was a sense of pressure.
Yeah.
Even the apps, and I'm reflecting. I mean, and we can take a few moments to reflect on also the nature of your own self care and what's my self care as well. But even when I think about meditation, I think a lot of people, especially since COVID, there's been like it's
Yeah.
been, soaring use of meditation apps, which is great.
Mm.
I mean, I think it's an interesting thing to witness. At the same time, I'm talking to a lot of people who've been doing that, and they're like, they don't understand how meditation works, and within the context of a conversation, they're getting all these notifications. Hey, remember to meditate. Have you meditated today? Okay, now you need to do it.
Mm.
And it's like sling, 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 meditate,
Yeah.
like notification after notification. And
Yeah.
and we know what these notifications do to our body, right? They're just the stress hormone, the stress hormone levels go up.
Right.
Um, and so I think here for me, I'm questioning here the nature of what self-care has become. And we can look
Mm.
into the societal aspect of it in a minute, but at the individual level, in summary, for me, I want to make sure that my self-care is rooted in love, it's rooted in compassion,
Mm.
hopefully like most of the practices in my life, but at least on this one, knowing that
Yeah.
the design is for me to do what? To just nurture my body, to provide love, to provide a space where there's an opportunity to heal, right? And we've had conversation about what does healing mean, but at least to just get off that hamster wheel and say, okay, right now this is me time. Not like, let's do one more thing. No,
Yeah.
let's get off that hamster wheel and take a moment to heal and love myself. Um, and I think for many of us, we've forgotten that.
Yeah. Um, so there is something, I know you mentioned that you've spoken to clients and even you yourself, you have dealt with like a healing ailment, just a bump in the road, and then there's one more item added to your list for healing, and that's self-care. And even with myself and the clients that I've spoken to, I just want to shine a light, especially on anyone who's watching live and watching this replay, is that yes, when there is something going on in our bodies and we're told, oh, this is a stress related diagnosis or disease or mind body symptom. And when we're told that, and also have the internet and these social media aspects and all these apps, is we see everyone doing self-care. If you're a business owner, you do self-care. If you're a mom, you do self-care. If you're a dad, if you're a business, like all these things. If you have a healing, something wrong, like a pain problem going on in your body right now, you definitely need to be doing self-care. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And what I want to tell the audience is that sometimes the pressure of knowing that something is stress related can fuel the fire when it comes down to trying too hard with the self-care and it going into burnout. And that's where we have to be honest with ourselves, where it's like, yes, I understand you want to get better. I want you to get better. But it's not a race here. You have to listen to your body. We have to learn how to listen to that mind-body connection, that voice. And so when we start to struggle with, if I don't log in and into this healing app and this meditation app, if I don't go in, take a walk, if I missed it today, then if I miss anything that I planned, then I'm letting myself down. Then I won't have the life that I want to have, that I'll never get over this healing journey. And what I really want to say is, whoa, slow down, give yourself self-compassion and love, because sometimes doing the things and diving into that and putting pressure in that is only sending off your alarm system, your nervous system, saying like, if I don't do this, then I won't heal. And if I continue to do this, then I will heal. So I have to do it. And the pressure is so unkind, because we miss what is supposed to be happening in that self-care journey. If it just becomes a task that we have to do every day or every week, etc., if it feels like homework. And I've spoken to a lot of clients, especially because I do work with mind-body symptoms, when clients have had chronic pain for years and years and years, and it came from no injury. It just so happened, and then they go with the physician, they get mind-body syndrome diagnosis, and they realize, oh, I used to have this stomach issue, I used to have headaches, now I have it in the low back, and it just keeps moving. And it's because we haven't listened to ourselves. We haven't found that voice where we're allowed to say, I went through this and I'm going through this, and I need to learn what my mind, body, and soul needs, not just what the media is telling me, not just, oh, because this cool Instagrammer that I like to follow is doing it, so it must work. Or even if you're in a group program and somebody is doing one self-care thing and they've seen positive results, that doesn't mean, I'm sorry to say, it doesn't mean that exact method, that exact healing technique is going to work for you. The whole process, and I know we've talked about healing before, is you finding your voice and finding that higher being and that's telling you what direction to take for you. Everyone has had their own experiences. Everyone has, and everyone receives things from the world differently and understands themselves differently. So no one's self-care techniques and tips, it's not always going to 100% work. The biggest thing is, all right, when you start meditating, and don't jump into like an hour meditation, like try small itty bitty steps. And when you're in that moment, just give yourself time to understand that, hey, right now, no matter how well I think I'm doing, or if I get distracted, I'm doing this for me. And if we can just bring that back, is like, if if I don't feel 100% better after this healing technique or this self-care technique, it's okay. Maybe my mind needed that healing. Maybe my soul needed that healing. If it doesn't show up in the body, it's a complete process, and it's not just when you get over this diagnosis, everything's better. There will always be a stressor every single day. There will always be a pain trigger. There will always be some type of trauma that you're dealing with, or some type of experience or coping mechanism or reaction that you're trying to become better on every single day of your life, until I hope you get to 108. So I just really want to remind the audience that when we are doing these self-care techniques and we're looking online and we're trying to find the answer to our pain problem, whether it's mind, body, or soul, just give yourself grace, slow down, and understand when you try something new, that you need to connect to yourself first. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. If it does work, cool. Don't go overboard. Listen to try to pay attention to what stage you're in your journey. And that can change every hour, really.
You know, there's a lot to unpack here, but what resonated with me is really the question, like, am I doing this, from a place of like, that's my higher self, that's for my higher good, or is it really my ego pushing me to do this thing? And obviously, I'm asking that question. I'm asking myself, because sometimes I'm engaging in practices, and that's not necessarily for my higher good. I'm just reflecting on last week when I decided to skip my practices, and that was my self-care. Skipping these practices was my self-care. If I had done these practices, if I had done this exercise, if I had done these different things, like, that was my ego wanting to not miss a day, wanting to show up, wanting to, for other people that I'm practicing with, nothing, blah, blah, blah. There were so many stories, and triggers in my mind. And at some point, and I was proud of myself, because I showed up and I was like, guys, I'm not doing it today. This is from a place of love for myself. Like, I'm not going to try to prove that I can do it. I could probably do it, but I would feel worse afterwards. I just need to do nothing. And so it's interesting for me, because that was my higher self going like, please don't do it. Please don't try to pretend or show up, or like, and so here for me, that not doing it was self-care. And the second point I want to go back to is like, when you spoke of like, well, maybe you just need to like chuck it down, like just small little tiny practices, because so many of us, and again, I'm going back to the example of meditation. Greetings to my brother Kamau at Meditation Mentor, who joined us. Here was, when people are like, I need to meditate, it has to be 20 minutes, it has to be 30 minutes, or I haven't had time to meditate this week, I'm going to meditate for an hour on Sunday. And I'm like, oh, no, let's understand how the nervous system works. Let's understand that 2 minutes of meditation might be so much more beneficial potentially than 10, 15, or 20 minutes. Because like you said, or like where my nervous system is, where am I in my healing? And I may need to sit with it for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And I don't need to sit with it for 8, 10, 15 minutes, because it's going to be too much. It's going to be overwhelming. Too much is going to come up, right? And so again, here looking into like tiny habit theory. What's his name again? Dr. BJ Fogg's, right? The tiny habit theory from the Stanford University. Excellent stuff to look into for those of you who want to geek out a little bit. He has some nice programs. And the last point here was also in terms of and if you're going to do something that's not self-care, that's something I remember from Dr. Susie Klein, who's the head of the Integrative Oncology Department at Huntington Hospital Cancer Center. I've been working with them for 8 years, collaborating with them for 8 years. And I remember we were co-facilitating a session many years ago about creating health in your life. And so we were bringing together our expertise. And and at some point she became very honest. She, after being very technical and facts and nutrients and this, at some point she was like, and you know what, if you're gonna eat that slice of pizza, just enjoy it. And in that moment she was so beautifully honest. She was like, because the guilt, you know, of like eating that cookie or that slice of pizza, you know, or having that glass of wine is going to be so much worse than the actual slice of pizza. And so in that moment, you know, like you said, giving myself grace and say, you know what, I'm just going to be gentle with myself. I need this today. This is what my soul needs. My soul doesn't need to work, you know, work out for an hour. Maybe I just need to sit with a glass of wine. And and sometimes that could be that's the best that you can do. And so here that brings me to kind of to my last reflection that comes from that comes mainly, there was something that was brought up once by my mentor, Mrs. Nkemendufo from Lumos Transforms. Who, again, we were talking about self-care, and she brought the idea of like, well, if you engage in self-care, is that a pause or is that a reset? And that was such an interesting reflection, because I think many of us are just pausing. We just kind of like, we're on the hamster wheel, and we pause for a few moments, and then I go again. There is no regeneration process. There is no nurturing process. There is no, you know, like binge watching Netflix, and I'm guilty as charged, you know. If that's all you got, that's all you got, that's okay. But ask yourself, like, as I ask myself, is this really something do I feel resourced? Do I feel regenerated? Do I feel refreshed? Is it like a healthy reset for me? Like a hike might be. Like for me, a hike is a powerful self-care practice, right? Because in that moment, when I come back to life, then I'm a different person. But if I just pause, I'm equally exhausted. You know, I haven't really dealt with any of the activation, any of the stress, you know, that's been accumulating in my body. So here, that's an invitation for myself, for you, for everybody here, to reflect on like, okay, when I engage in my self-care practice, am I just pressing pause and then going back to the usual same old, jumping back on my hamster wheel? Or am I actually able to create that reset in myself? Am I able to show up and come back, you know, a better person? And again, if you're unable to reset, you're unable to reset. If watching Netflix, you know, sometimes that's all we got, that's all we got. That's okay. But I think we need to reflect again on the purpose here of these practices, or the purpose of not doing these practices. If, as mentioned previously, sometimes you just need to do nothing, which I think has become a rare thing to do these days.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I know a lot of times just with mind-body symptoms and reading all the books with Dr. Sarno and Schechter and Schubiner, and there are so many when it comes down to mind-body syndrome and healing. And the key term is always do the work. And it becomes a job for many people who are trying so hard to fix chronic pain. And that's not going against like what the books say, because they are guiding and it makes sense and it works. However, there's a certain personality, and when we're just dreading the life of chronic pain, and when is it gonna, having those thoughts of when is it gonna end, then sometimes this self-care burnout happens. And I think it's really a key ingredient when you say, is it rest? Are we just pausing, or are we also resetting? And that's a huge thing. On this note, because I know we have to go, I guess we can talk a little bit about our programs. So what we have going on. So I'll just shoot it really quickly. If you are in that area where you feel like you're doing the work and you have chronic pain and you've been reading all these books, looking online, and you feel like I'm doing the work, I'm doing what everyone says, and it's not working. If you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed about it, first, just breathe. It's okay. It's okay. Not everyone has an answer, and there's not one answer for every stage in your life. The second thing that I want to tell you guys is on April 7th, I have a group program that's opening. It starts at 6 p.m. on Thursdays. It's a 6-week program. It's for chronic pain warriors, people with any mind-body symptoms. That can be IBS, that can be headaches, that can be low back pain. The list goes on and on. But we'll meet once a week. It's just a small group of 6 people, and we will start resetting that nervous system. It is a program that was designed by me and also approved by Dr. Schechter. And yeah, we'll be doing some mind-body-based, skill-based techniques like breathing, like journaling, like doing mantras. And it's just a load of positivity, but it's also a place where you can reflect, you can relax, you can have somebody that's uplifting you and that's also empathetic to what you're going through. So I'm really excited about that program. You can find the link to learn more in my bio at Body and More Wellness, and you'll see the Neural Pathway Training Group program. Click the link there.
And as always, we've talked many times about the importance of finding a space where really we can, feel what we need to feel and process all of that. You don't have to talking about doing the work, you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do the healing alone. There's so much power in the collective. For those who would look into more group activities, whether it's for cancer recovery, whether it's for men's work and so on and so forth, just look up the Healing Studio online, sign up for our newsletter, look up our YouTube channel for all the previous conversations. Amari, thank you so much for being here, for being you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Take good care of yourself, rooted in compassion and love. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next week. Cheers.